We're about to dive into the 3 factors of catching your personal best. Guys, welcome to the Fishing Coach YouTube channel. I'm Coach E, Jimmy Eastring, and guys, I've been a part of a lot of big fish catches in my fishing career from when I started off when I was little all the way to now. And this last year even, one of the biggest bass, and right now reported the biggest bass in Arkansas, was caught in my boat on a guided trip. It was 12.66 down here at Lake DeGray, a Highland reservoir. And guys, I've luckily myself caught another double digit this year. I've been a part of big fish catches. I'm going to share with you guys, in my opinion, the 3 factors that you need to know. Okay, guys? So let's get into factor number 1. Everybody wants to catch big fish, but the biggest factor, I believe, is fishing the right lake. You got to go to lakes that have big bass. Now, with that, at times, like Lake DeGray, for example, has big fish, but there aren't many. And it's a big highland, clear, and the other half's more of a river, stainwater reservoir. Lake Ouachita, for example, down here at Hot Springs, has big fish, but it's giant, guys. So when you hear of big fish factories, O.H. Ivy, great place to go try to catch a giant. Lake Fork, another good place to go catch your personal best. Guys, these are some bigger lakes that are more popular, and there are more throughout the country. You hear about lakes like the Tennessee River, Guntersville. When you go to Florida, down there in Florida, there's so many lakes where you can catch a double digit or your personal best. But guys, and I'm not going to leave out the West Coast. There's some lakes over there too. But guys, one other factor about it is there's small lakes too that have big fish, and that's where I want to tell you to go. You need to find your smaller lakes that are near you that have big bass. Now you're like, hey Jimmy, how do I know if they have big bass? Josh Jones laid it out there, probably the best big bass catcher right now in fishing. Okay, Josh Jones laid it out on a podcast a few years ago. You find your smaller lakes in a 200 miles from you, but then you look at the stalking reports by your Game and Fish. He looked at Oklahoma and studied how some of these lakes had Florida bass put in them in certain years, how they had bait fish, how they had brim. And for me, that's one thing I've done here in Arkansas. We have lakes that are small that have Florida bass put in them, a bunch of shad, a bunch of red ear, and those are lakes that are good starting points. Okay, so don't just always think of the bigger lakes. Sometimes the bigger lakes are harder to catch a big one out of than your smaller one. Smaller to me is always a little better. Now, there are negatives with the smaller ones. If the locals know about them, of course, the locals might go and catch them and keep them or move the fish. That's happened to some of our lakes down here, to where there are some small lakes that have big fish. Well, these locals started catching 5 to 7 pounders out of them and took them to their ponds, which means those 5 and 7 pounders did not get to grow to be 8 to 10 pounders. So for you where you're at, kind of look at these smaller lakes. Sometimes city lakes, for example. In Arkansas, there are a few city lakes that have a lot of 5 to 8 pound fish. And in Arkansas, a 8 pound fish is a big, big bass, okay? So guys, number 1 is find the lake with the big one. Now, number 2 is huge. Number 2, this work starts going to the fishing style and you as a fisherman. Number 2 is what end of the lake are you going to fish? The type of area you're going to fish. Typically, guys, someone might say, I caught mine here. Your lower end of the lakes are going to have your bigger fish. Lower end, if you break it down in lower, mid, high, your lower section of the lake is going to have the bigger fish. Now, guys, before we break into the lower end and how to look for and what to go by, I want to let you know this video today is brought to you by Triple B Asphalt Company. Guys, Triple B Asphalt is located in Northwest Arkansas, but they'll work down to Central Arkansas. One thing you need to do if you have a business, okay, or if you know someone of a business, or if you have a shop, a big garage, or a long road up to another road that is pavement, it might be time to resurface it, okay, guys? One thing about the resurfacing, one thing about going over and checking your pavement with the weather that's coming up. If you have not done this in a 5 to 10 year period, guys, with the weather we have here in Arkansas, I know it will help damage it. Your potholes are going to get created. One thing Triple B will do is get there right away, fix your stuff up to where it is ready for the upcoming weather that we have. Thank you, Triple B, for sponsoring today's video. Any more information on Triple B will be down into the description. There will be a link. Once again, thank you. Now, guys, let's talk about the lower ends of the lake. Okay, lower ends, okay, typically your water's cleaner, you're deeper, and there's a dam nearby. One thing I remember Josh Jones saying, and I like, Josh Jones, once again, I like to listen to Josh and see what he has to say because he is, what I think right now is one of the big bass catchers. Josh mentioned his first time ever to OH Ivy, he went to the dam. And so, guys, that's where your lower end's going to be, is where the dam's at, okay? Even on these smaller lakes. I remember doing a trip, a forward-facing lesson trip this last end of February on a lake in Texas I've never been to. Small lake. I met my client there. Great dude. He's local to it. We caught our biggest fish on the dam of the trip in 2 days. It was a 7.5 pounder. Caught it on the dam, okay? I know some other my smaller lakes. I've caught them, some of my biggest fish near the dam, okay, or near the spillway area. My 11 pounder this last year on a lake, that was a smaller lake in South Arkansas. Spillways in sight. One of my lakes in Southwest Arkansas that I lived by for 6 years, and I caught a lot of 7 pounders on this lake. Over half of them were in sight of the dam, okay. Lake DeGray this last year, where we caught the 12.5, where my buddy caught the 11. We're on the lower end of the lake. Deepest, cleanest water, okay? Now, one thing about it on your lakes is where it's also harder to catch some of these fish. If it's like a DeGray, a Ouachita, a Table Rock, for example. I know my guys up there in Missouri, Table Rock, Ozark, because your water's going to be cleaner, it's going to be deeper, and those fish are smarter that are bigger. It just is what it is. They're smarter. And so that is one thing about it, is how you got to understand this, and then that's where it goes into the time of the year, which we'll talk about here in a minute. But on this lower end, I like to look where areas are deep near shallow water. Okay, now of course those fish can just be swimming around in open water. We know that. I mean, now forward facing, but I still like to go by where that channel, that main channel, is going to be near a point. There's going to be near a high spot. It's going to be near some irregularity. Okay, if it's just a big flat, like on those small lakes that we're talking about, if it's a big flat, well then, hey, look for that cover. If it's a rock pile, a brush pile, timber, look for a cover that fish can be on, okay? And so that's something that we just need to do, but look at the lower end of the lake. Factor number 3, okay? Factor number 3 is the time of the year, okay? The time of the year. When you look at these big fish, always people think it's the spawn. The spawn is a big factor, and then that's when you're going to go catch them on beds at times, or maybe kind of pre-spawn. But the biggest time of the year is the winter, okay? The winter, they're at the biggest they're going to be, okay? The winter, those big ones come out. They're easier to catch in the winter when it's cold, 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 because of my thought here. Here's my thought. It's super cold during the day, 45 degrees, let's say, 40 degrees. But how cold is it at night? Well, Jimmy, it's like colder at night. Those fish are not eating at night as much as they are during the summer. Summer, you're going to catch your big ones typically during the nighttime, okay? Definitely on your clear bodies of water. Now, those small public lakes we're talking about, you can catch your giants during the day, but those big ones can still eat at night. Water temperatures are hotter, once again, those big ones are smarter, and they will eat at night. But I think in the winter, they don't eat as much at night, because if it's 40 degrees or 38 degrees at noon, then at night it might be 17, and they're just more lethargic and more cold, and they're not, just moving as fast as they are when that water's 80 and 90 during the full moon of the summer. So during the winter, you catch them more throughout the day. That's why I always love fishing the winter. I love fishing the winter. Before Live Scope, I was a winter guy. I caught a lot of big fish in the winter because I always thought for some reason you have a better chance of catching them because it is colder and they are still going to eat, but they are more chance of eating during the day. A lot of people don't want to go fish in those conditions. I have so much footage and pictures and memories of fishing in the sleet, in the cold, days where you're motor's freezing up back there. Here's my not this, I've never been in this boat in the winter, but my boat right here that my thing's on is freezing where you can't even turn your cables. Those are the days to where, like, man, you seem to catch big fish and have really, really good days, okay? Last year when we caught those big fish, for example, we had, here it is, okay, when the 11, the 12-6, and then my 11 all happened in 9 days. It's kind of wild. We had a week, okay, of cold weather. Ice, snow here in Arkansas froze us out. I remember the first day I got out there and the water was like 44 degrees and there's not been a boat out there, and man, there were big fish around, and I caught a couple, and then next thing you know, we went out there, boom, 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 and it happened, okay? So cold time of the year is very, very high chance of catching the big one. You can still catch them in the spawn. My guys down there in Florida, I know. Those Florida fish are different during the winter, okay? If you're watching this from Florida, you're like, Jimmy, you're crazy. It's different down there, okay? But in this mid-central, and I know up north, guys, y'all are like frozen. My guys that are up there are frozen, okay? But like down here in Texas, okay, Arkansas, Table Rock, those areas, this is the time for you to catch a big, big one, okay? May is still a good time to catch a big fish. July is, but you see them giants really happen during the winter. Now, once again, summer, you can in the summer at night. Right now in the fall, you can. But, you know, look at OH Ivy, those guys that just went down there, MLF, BPT, they didn't catch any giants, okay? It's tough, all right? Now, some of those guides and stuff still will, I know. But as we have December coming up, get ready. They will start showing out. Guys, I know I could talk about baits. That could be the fourth factor, guys. Baits, a jig's going to catch big fish. It always is going to catch big fish. Alabama rig catches big fish. If you know me and my story, I didn't throw an Alabama rig after they banned it. Then Ford Facing got back on the boat, and I got told, hey, you might need to throw this thing, and I started throwing it. The jig head minnow this last year caught big fish for us, and that's just more for the Ford Facing. Lipless crankbait catch big. There's a lot of big fish tactics, but you need, or big baits that catch, there's a lot of baits that catch big fish, but you need to fish them during the season, okay? And during your areas. That could be a whole nother video, okay? Appreciate you guys. Let me know what you think about this video. Thank you for watching. Now let's get into the FAQ segment. Excited to share something that I heard yesterday, and I'm still going to be kind of studying on for the future kind of weeks, I guess. It's kind of something interesting. I never heard it preached before like this, okay? And I thought, and I'm very thankful where I'm going to church right now, our guy, our pastor, is not afraid to bring stuff that other people are. You always think you go to church and hear roses and rainbows. And my guy at Nashville, that I was a part of my church there, he would not be afraid to bring the word in ways to where we need to hear it. And yesterday I heard it something that I've never heard preached really before in this way. So it was at Luke 12, 51 through 53. And I don't have it all memorized because I'm not the best memorization guy. And I just heard it yesterday. But the whole theory of these verses was how Jesus, and this is Jesus speaking, okay, how he came and did not come to bring peace, but to brought division. He even said in there how he came to bring fire. And like, I've never heard it preached like I did yesterday. And then in the backside of it was, how do you help the division? Like, okay, how do you help the division? So, and you think about, though, when Jesus came, did his thing, guys, and here we are with religion, there is a lot of division amongst religion, okay? And there's division amongst the earth. And it's interesting to say, people think, you know, Christianity, Jesus, it's all, you know, oh, hey, here, you know, I came. And there's a lot of positive to it, I know, but how he said in these three verses, it makes you think. And it's something that people need to hear. But the whole backside of it is, how do you help that division? And that's where Jesus also teaches. And yesterday, you know, for us, it was love. You got to love everybody, okay? And really love them. Not just a fake love, a love them. And then you got to live it. You got to live what Jesus preached, what Jesus showed. You got to follow him, and that's the whole part of the New Testament. And then the other one was yourself preaching. And that's where, like me at times, it's tough, and like me in public, and probably you and others, is preaching it out in public. Hey, like having scripture ready, having it ready. I'm always been the guy to where I love others, I love kids, I love anybody. I don't care who you are, I'm going to love you and show respect to you. But then the other one is, by my actions, I want you to see. Now, we're not perfect. We might mess up, but I want you to see by my actions. But then that third one is the one I think that most people struggle with. But guys, go check that verse out, Luke 12, 51 through 53. Something I think overlooked and not spoke about it much, and I've never really heard it in a message like I did yesterday. Appreciate you guys checking out the Faith Juice segment. Thank you again. We'll see you guys on the next one.